We got a lot of questions sent in to us before the workshop, and may I start to direct to the panel a few of these. Many of them focused on exactly how do we get new actors into these facilities. And you, Ulf, also touched upon it, because there seems to be some kind of anxiety that programs and facilities are more and more geared towards the already established parties. And there is a high focus on results and evaluation, etc., etc. And people who wrote to us seem to see, well, how do we get into the picture? Do you have a strategy to reach out to new actors? I leave it to anyone who likes to pick up the word. And you wave for Jacek if you have a question. Yeah.
Was established as a response to findings or shortcomings that that projects have difficulties in this very initial phase of project preparation. That you need to look for partners, you have to bring together different interests in one application, and therefore, in this SeedMoney phase, it's very important to have also new partners involved, which really need support. And this has been communicated to all the stakeholders involved in the implementation of the SeedMoney facility, that we encourage new partnerships, we encourage new ideas. But we can also see from our experience from this year of implementation that it is true that the strategic projects are mostly initiated by already experienced partners. But it means that they start the process, but they also have enough of experience to bring new partners involved. So this is what we communicate to projects, and we really encourage also priority area coordinators to give support to really initiatives that, that need this support.
Anyone else like to pick up on this, or should we give the...
Thank you. My name is Terry Long, and I'm the chairman of the International Dialogue on Underwater Munitions. And I come from Canada, and I'm the co-director of 2 chemical weapons programs for the Baltic Sea, the ChemSea program, and our new one, MODEM, which is a NATO Peace for Science program. What I'd like to say is when you look at new actors and new opportunities, I think that as a group, the European Union, you have the Baltic Sea, but I also think you can look outside that sea. I think you can look to other parts of the world, such as North America, and some of the same problems you're experiencing in your waters, we're experiencing in ours. And I think there's a lot of different synergies that we can create with one another and actually help us to make a better place for everybody for the water. One of the big concerns we have is not only the chemical weapons, but the conventional munitions. So I would just like to put out to you that this summer in May in Nova Scotia, we're having our 5th International Dialogue on Underwater Munitions that's being followed up by an economic summit. And at this economic summit, we're looking at synergies that can be created between private industry, NGO, and government on marine cluster opportunities. Now, this is a real opportunity to actually do something for the marine environment, because by removing these munitions, which are point source emitters of pollution, we actually increase the viability and the health of our fish stocks, and we reduce the negative impact on our healthcare systems. So what I would like to leave you with is I'm from Canada, and I actually get funding from Canada to attend some of these events in Europe. So if anybody would like to look at this opportunity to come to Nova Scotia, where Canada and the EU is presently developing a new free trade agreement, I think this is an excellent opportunity to start looking at new actors. Thank you.
Thank you. We have more questions here.
Hello, my name is Joanna Held. I work in Polish Perm Rep to the EU in Brussels, and I work with the Baltic Sea strategy since 4 years. And I would like to pose 2 questions to Mr. Axel Roth from DG Regio. The first is, you said that you as the macro-regional competence center wholeheartedly support the proposal submitted by the Swedish Agency for Regional and Economic Growth. A proposal on adding this or introducing the transnational component. We know that the support of your unit probably would not be enough, and the most important would be to transmit it to the implementation parts of the Regio and also to managing authorities. So I would like to ask you whether this proposal have been transmitted to the geo units of the Baltic Sea region among the Regio. And do you have any guarantee this was also sent to the managing authorities of the Baltic Sea region? And do you plan any feedback to obtain from them? Because I think this would be very crucial for pushing it further in an effective manner, or at least to check the expectations and opinions towards that mechanism, because it might be perceived, and I know it is perceived as a bit innovative, and for some people might be perceived as difficult. So the sooner we start consulting it, I think the better. My second question is, you also mentioned your work on the partnership agreements and the screening of them. So my second question would be, what mechanisms the member states of the Baltic Sea region are proposing in their partnership agreements to align the funding with the Baltic Sea strategy? I mean here the mainstream programs. Can you say any specific examples, and which member state would be the most open in this and most brave? Thank you very much.
Axel.
Thank you. First things first, certainly the geographic units in our house are the main interlocutors with the national authorities on partnership agreements, and of course we have shared this approach with them. Can I sit here and guarantee that something is going to be used? No. This is of course an option, and it's a technical option, and of course there are other options. But the reason I said I gave my support to the proposal here is that the proposal that has been developed over the last year is showing potential to make it possible for these funding programs to secure a certain degree of coordination. I mean, if we look at a couple of the actions around the Baltic Sea region, I mean, the LNG infrastructure, just to take a random one, if we're going to have an effective development on that, we need a certain developed network of bunkering facilities and other things. Let's see, on the partnership agreements and coordination of funding, I think that this is really one of the areas that I feel I have the weakest overview over. But I do see that it varies a lot between the various countries. It has something to do with the varying degree of funding received by the different countries in the region. There's in some countries the coordination consists of the same people being on monitoring committees of several programs. So one can assume that one person keeps a memory of what was discussed in the other programs. In other countries, this consists of structured meetings between the different institutions involved, etc. But this is clearly something that we need to see some more clarity on. Furthermore, when we talk about the alignment and sort of good examples of what has been achieved so far, I think we do see some promising signs from the Swedish authorities, as also I believe Han mentioned yesterday. But this is not the only positive case. And thing is, I think in general we seek a little bit more analysis. You know, where are we and where do we want to go? But first and foremost, we want to see the willingness, the declaration of will that shows us that this document is usable as sort of a reference text in the coming period. The work to align funding doesn't stop when a project is approved. I think that's when it really starts, because that's when we get the calls. That's when we start preparing the discussions in monitoring committees and actually have the operative criteria to see what the quality and of project proposals are, and whether that fits into the country-specific programs, the regional programs, the European ones. So I think that at the moment it's difficult to sort of pinpoint a good example. We see that certainly the thematic objectives are there, that open for a lot of the activities of the strategies, but we certainly would like to see that the member states interpret this the same as we do. Thank you.
We have 2 questions from the audience, and also Jan would like to comment on, in particular on this, or in general? Okay, then we'll take the questions, and then, yes, in the back.
My name is Jalal, and I'm representing Baltic University program, and I'm from Helsinki Metropolitan University, Finland. And my question is, what are the opportunities and possibilities for young researchers and innovators at a low level for individuals like me? For example, I want to implement a robot network model in Baltic Sea. And I have designed that robot network model in South Korea for ECC labs. I want to use a vector indexing algorithm for the reduction of traffic in the Baltic Sea. So what are the chances, possibilities, and opportunities at the research programs from the European Union and for individuals like me to keep doing the innovations and developments for the Baltic Sea? Thank you.
Anyone in the panel like to pick up on this? Anne?
Yeah, one of the programs of the Nordic Council of Ministers that I didn't mention was the Nord Plus scheme that support exchange of both students and researchers in the field of education and research. I cannot answer your question specifically to say if your project will be eligible for this, but I would definitely recommend you to look into this scheme. And that is Nord Plus.
And we have a question from the front here, and then we will let in the panel for a closing comment, and then we need to go back to lunch if we're going to make lunch before the next session begin. Please.
My name is not heard.
The second microphone here.
My name is Hans-Olof Stålgren. I'm from the Swedish Board of Agriculture and also representing the rural network of Sweden. I just would like to underline what Ulf Savbeck was mentioning about this transnational component in the regional fund, the social fund, and also the rural development fund and other programs. And what Axel Röd also said, this opportunity, this window of some weeks now, when the programs are finalized, to include such opportunities, because we are working with initiatives regionally, locally, nationally, that have effect on the Baltic Sea, but we don't have the opportunity to fund cooperation with those programs, and we need those possibilities. So just underlining the importance of including these in the programs that some of you are writing right now? Thanks.
Yes, I think if we have no other short questions, then we will give the panelists a closing word, beginning the Ilze and then, Jan.
You wanted to express?
Yeah, well,
Jan.
Okay, I had a sort of a comment which addresses many of the questions which have been posed during the discussion. That sort of a potential happy case, which begins with an EU project which was called Baltic Sea Labour Network. It concluded with a conference in Hamburg 2 years ago, where we formed a Baltic Sea Labour Forum, where the CBSS Secretariat undertook to be fulfilling a Secretariat function for an initial period. This forum consists of main stakeholders, non-government stakeholders, but still main stakeholders on the labour market in the Baltic Sea region. There are representatives of all countries. This forum is now meeting regularly. We had a conference in Helsinki 1st November. They have received seed money for developing a project on labour mobility, or for first investigating the situation on labour mobility and information centres in the region, using experience from the Nordic level, not least, such as Hello Norden and whatnot. And it will hopefully grow. And the European Social Fund is quite interested for the next funding period in funding a sizable regional initiative in terms of improving labour mobility in the region through this network, because this is a network containing many major stakeholders, labour organizations, employer organizations, and what have you in the region. And I tell this story just to show how an EU flagship project moves from being a project to being a network, and then perhaps establishing contact with the European Social Fund, which is has huge resources, normally national resources at its disposal. But here there is an agreement to try to work, to think regionally amongst the national representatives of the European Social Fund in the Baltic Sea region. We will see how this pans out. It's not a foregone conclusion. I mean, it's not. I can't promise that this will end well, but we are certainly working hard to make it end well. And we have two representatives of the project are here at the conference. So I just want to say that this shows that things can happen, and things are sort of happening despite all the problems being cited. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other of the panelists like to have a closing word? Helene, Ulf, and Axel.
I just want to mention that we, of course, at the Swedish Institute encourage new actors to submit projects, but I think it's also very important to stress that the new actors need to know the ones who are already there, so we also avoid duplication. And we do really like cluster. We really like when the NGOs cooperate with the academia and with the private sector. And to the researchers in the back, I just can advise you to maybe also go outside of your sector and find partners in the other two sectors, and then if we should focus on the projects to be submitted and not scholarships, you need to cooperate with the private sector, the NGOs to succeed with funding. And then regarding, maybe Mikael, you will also mention, of course, we would like to see a continuation of what we call today funding in the future. And we think this is very important. It's really, really nice to be able to discuss with our nearest colleagues on the subjects that actually we discuss in the office daily. And I hope this is just a good start of our future cooperation and strengthen the cooperation as such. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of comments then. First on making it more accessible for new actors. There's quite a lot of awareness in the EU programs, I would say. I myself is active in the Baltic Sea Region program, where we discuss different solutions how to facilitate for smaller actors, new actors to enter into the program, because the costs of making an application has become higher and higher, and we have heard that quite clearly from regional and local levels especially. So what we discuss solutions could be two-phase applications, for example. That first phase where you have a simplified application, and then you continue with a full application only after sort of having been granted, which would save a lot of work. Seed money, of course, as we have discussed here, that is a part of the program, which it is not now in this program period, but that it's there for the next program period. And short comment on this transnational component. I mean, I think we've heard that this can be introduced in all the EU funds, regional, the rural programs as well, as we heard from Hans-Olof here. But I would also say that this kind of component can be introduced in any program. So also take it home and try to lobby this kind of possibility in national programs as well, that you can add a cooperation to ongoing projects when this is relevant. And altogether, I would say this awareness raising that I mentioned will be more and more important, because more and more decision makers in different programs will be involved in making decisions regarding transnational cooperation. So we have to raise awareness of what we want to do, the results we have achieved, etc., so they understand the added value. Also, as Jan Lundin mentioned, crowdfunding. I think awareness raising and the communication of what we want to do and what we want to achieve is very important to succeed with such kind of funding. So ask for solutions, inform about results. I mentioned the EIB technical assistance towards the Danube strategy, and when I asked the European Investment Bank why this wasn't happening in the Baltic Sea region, they just said, "You didn't ask." So.
Thank you. And closing words to Axel, please.
Thank you. I think it's worth just pointing out the experiences from the seed money facilities so far show that there are so many good ideas out there that are worth funding for the future. And I think it is our important responsibility, well, partly our responsibility, that we can capitalize on them, and therefore we are making efforts to make sure that also the EUSBSR seed money facility will continue to be operational with resources until the BSR program is operational from the sometime next year. But just closing remarks. I mean, the exciting thing now is that we really don't know what's going to happen. Remember that in 2007 was when the current programming period started. In the meantime, we've gotten iPhones, Facebook. Can you imagine a time before that? And I think that I'm rather curious as to see what kind of new developments we can see in this region in the coming period. Thank you.
So I think we thank the panel and the commentators with a big hand, and we all rush off to lunch, but we also hope to see you in the networking village, and I take it that the cooperation between these agencies will continue, and we also hope to see you on continued panels at future conferences on the same topic, because I think while we may have a better picture of the maze, we're still in the maze, and the general idea of reducing transaction costs and information costs connected to finding financing remains a hot topic for the years to come. Thank you.